So I tried recording this review in my car, forgetting the fact that if I let my phone go for a really long time in the heat, it overheats and it needs to be cooled off before it can be used. So it stopped my recording as soon as I was about done talking about the main event, and I'm just like, you know what, I'll just scrap it, and I'm just going to record it in a nice, cool environment where I know that I'm not going to have any problems with temperature. So that's why the review is coming out just a touch later than, it would have probably come out around this time anyway. It's now on my laptop instead. But other than that, I'm Daniel Strong. This is Quick Time Reactions, and welcome to my Clash in Italy review. I thought tonight was a good show. It was a pretty good show. Some good matches. And your boy got every single one of his predictions right. I went 5 for 5 on the show. I'm just so... My brain, its genius is imaginable. So, it's just another day in the office for me. But yeah, I thought tonight was a good show. And let's not dilly-dally. Let's just go in and just start talking about this show. We opened things up. Cody Rhodes, Gunther for the WWE Championship. Of course, these guys had fought previously only once before. That being at Crown Jewel 24, I believe, with Cody coming out on top. They've had encounters in a couple of Royal Rumbles, with Cody, of course, being the victor in those situations. And so, of course, Gunther is going to be out for, a little bit of retribution, but also out to win that championship. He started out hot against Cody. Like, he probably had the majority of offense in this match. There was at one point early on in the match where Cody goes for the disaster kick, but Gunther just swats him out of the air with a chop. Like I said, Gunther is in control for the majority of this match. Cody does get his shots in. He gets his drop-down uppercut. He does hit a crossroads pretty early on, which I think gets kicked out at 2. Gunther gets Cody in the sleeper for like a long, long time. You think Cody's going to pass out, but nope, he's able to shimmy his body over to the bottom rope to force a break. Gunther tries to get the sleeper back on Cody, but he's just maneuvering his way out of it. We get towards the tail end of the match. Cody is able to hit a disaster kick, a Cody cutter, and another crossroads. But there is a bit of controversy to this match, because Gunther's foot broke the plane of the rope, which would have forced a break. However, the ref did not see that. So Cody got the pin and the win, retaining his championship. But afterwards, Gunther was very, very mad about that. And yeah, my assumption is that there is going to be a rematch at Night of Champions. Of course, I think Gunther is going to be going after Cody in the coming weeks to facilitate said rematch. But I do think that there's going to be a rematch down the line. And maybe that's where Gunther wins the championship. I don't know. But for now, anyways, Cody is still WWE Champion. From the men's WWE Championship, we go over to the women's WWE Championship. Rhea Ripley defending against Jade Cargill. This was another really good matchup. Both of them worked off each other pretty well. Jade having a little bit more of the strength advantage and was the more dominant force in this matchup. In fact, at one point early on, she catches Rhea's cannonball senton off the apron, which I thought was very impressive of it in and of itself, and able to regain control. Rhea, though, still able to get some shots in, but Jade was firmly in control. There was one point where there was a really good series of counters where Jade went for Jaded. Rhea got out. She went to go for a Riptide, but Jade countered into a DDT. Not long after that, Rhea has Jade up for like an electric chair. They both go out of the ring. Rhea hits like the bottom of her shoulders or her back on the apron, which looked like that really sucked to take. But she still had Jade in the electric chair and dropped her face first on the apron. I don't understand how she was able to hold on to her like that, but credit to her, she did. Rhea looks like she's going to have the match in hand, but then, of course, Michin and B-Fab come out. And Rhea eventually hits a Riptide, and I found this a little bit funny. B-Fab tries to get Jade's foot onto the bottom rope, but she kind of fumbles it, and so they kind of have to improv it a little bit. Jade puts her foot on the bottom rope, and the ref catches B-Fab in, the act of doing so. Rhea goes outside to... Looks like she's going to fight Michin and B-Fab, but she does have a bit of backup, which is Charlotte. She takes out Michin and B-Fab. Meanwhile, back in the ring, Rhea slides back in. She gets hit with a thrust kick and Jaded, and it looks like it's going to be all over, but Charlotte gets Rhea's foot on the bottom rope. Of course, this makes Jade angry, and that's enough of a distraction for Rhea to hit a Riptide and retain her championship. So this is actually very interesting because on the post-show, they announced the brackets for King and Queen of the Ring. So let us take a look at the women's bracket. Liv Morgan and Becky Lynch, Alexa Bliss and Chelsea Green, Solruca and Lyra Valkyria, Charlotte Flair and Jade Cargill, which now that ought to be a very interesting matchup considering what happened on this show. Roxanne Perez, Io Sky, Julia Lash Legend, Bayley, Raquel Rodriguez, JC Jane, and Kiana James. I think my dark horse for this is JC Jane. I think she has the potential to go pretty far in this tournament. But if I was to pick somebody, I'm going to say that they might go with Io. I have no idea why Liv is in the tournament, considering that she is the Women's World Champion. But my assumption is that they might go with Io to win the women's tournament. But that Charlotte Jade match is going to be very interesting in the first round. Again, considering what happened tonight. But still, WWE Women's Champ, Rhea Ripley. So those first two matches were on ESPN. We now move on to what you have to pay for in the app. The rematch of the century. Oba, Brock 2. And this was a much more focused and determined Lesnar, which you could tell that immediately out of the gate. He jumped Oba after ring introductions, and he hit him with 4 straight F5s. But Oba was still able to kick out. Brock ends up putting on a Kimura, which Oba's in for a pretty long time. He's able to get out. but Lesnar still able to get him up for a fifth F5. There's another kick out. They go out to the outside. Brock tries to get the Kimura back in. Oba escapes. Brock is able to hit an F5 through the announce table. I should say earlier on, before all that happened, Oba hit a choke slam on Brock in the ring. They kind of mistimed the jump a little bit, but it was still fine. But back to it, Brock puts Oba through the announce table with a sixth F5. I love this. At 6, Oba just like sits up and stands up and then just rolls back into the ring. He hits a flurry of European uppercuts and is going to go for a fall from grace, but Brock gets out of it, hits a 7th F5, and that is enough for Oba to stay down. Brock Lesnar wins the rematch. And like I said, I think they might continue this feud to Night of Champions. Potentially maybe even stretch this out to SummerSlam. Who knows? But since I bring up Oba's name, he is actually one of the participants in the King of the Ring tournament. So let's just run down the men's bracket. Penta and Oba, Sikoa, Hayes, Mysterio, Breaker, Williams, Priest, Rollins, Evans, Talatonga, Saints, Jey Uso, LA Knight, Keys, and Balor. That is the bracket. My dark horse in this is probably going to be Keys. Again, I think that he has the potential to go pretty far in the tournament if they decide to, put him as a dark horse. But I am thinking that it might be either going to be Femi or safe bet could be Rollins. They could potentially finally go with LA Knight, but Femi's like the only person that I can see winning this. But at the same time, I'm thinking if they're going to do the rubber match at Night of Champions, that I'm assuming he's going to get knocked out of this tournament by an interfering Lesnar. So I don't know. It's up in the air for me to kind of pick a winner for the men's tournament. But, we'll just have to wait and see what happens in the upcoming weeks on television. But as of right now, Brock Lesnar walking out with a W tonight from Italy against Obafemi. We move on to the women's IC title match. Becky Lynch taking on solruca. This was a really good matchup between the two of them in this. Lots of really good back and forth. Lots of interesting counters. Of course, Becky continuing the story with referee Jessica Carr getting in her face. Just lots of really cool stuff from Sol. Like at one point, she gets her feet hung up over the top rope. Becky tries to go and punch her in the face, but she sits up, which then Becky hits her hand off of the post, which I thought was very interesting. The gymnastics background that Sol has just makes her movements and the way that she performs in the ring, it's just so cool to see. Again, lots of really good back and forth. I talked about, Becky getting the face of Jessica Carr. She goes for an O'Connor roll out of the corner, but she almost smushed Jessica Carr with that, so she was a little bit late getting to Becky's count. There was one point towards the back end of this match where Sol goes for a Sasuke special, but she does the cartwheel. Where she lands, she's a little bit too close to the ropes, and I don't know how she was able to do it, but she was still able to flip over the top rope. Granted, not as cleanly, but she was still able to go over the top rope and land relatively decently onto Becky, which I don't understand how that's possible. Sol does kick out of a manhandle slam, and the finish of this being Becky goes for a second. Sol hops up to the second. She hits a Soul Snatcher on Becky to win the match, and she is the new Women's IC champion. They could, again, potentially run this match back at Night of Champions. Considering that both women are in the IC tournament, I see Becky potentially losing her first round match against Liv, and then whether it be in this round or the next one, she's going to cost Sol her matchup, knocking her out of the tournament, which will institute the rematch at Night of Champions. That's just how I see their two paths in the tournament kind of coming to an end. But we'll just have to wait and see for the upcoming weeks on television. But yeah, solruca, new Women's IC champ. And now we move on to the main event. Roman Reigns, Jacobfatu, tribal combat for the World Heavyweight Championship. Jacob is just, a little bit more insane. He got a little bit, he's got some screws loose, whereas Roman is all power. There's one spot early on in the match where Roman does a drive-by to Fatu, literally into the post, which I don't think I've ever seen Reigns do that before. Of course, there's crowd brawling and stuff like that. Not a lot of weapons used in this. There's not a lot of chairs, no kendo sticks. There is a table and a toolbox, but I think that's pretty much it. And the toolbox comes into play because Roman is targeting the hand of Jacobfatu to kind of neutralize the Tongan death grip, which is proven to be very effective. But even if Jacobfatu isn't able to apply the Tongan death grip, he is still very much a madman. He was eating Superman punches left, right, and center, eating a spear and kicking out. He gets his head rammed into 2 exposed turnbuckles. Roman exposed 3 out of the 4 top turnbuckles. Jacob's head went into 2 of them, and even after that, hit Roman with a spear for a near fall. And with every strike towards the back end of this match, it just fueled Jacob, and he just went on a run. Big body splash in the corner. The Umaga hip attack in the corner. He does hit his moonsault, but Roman kicks out. But, going back to the old tribal chief days, that kick out with the arm happens to be a low blow that the ref doesn't catch. And so, towards the back end of this match, it seems like Jacob has all the momentum in the world, but Roman's able to put a stop to it by ramming his head repeatedly into a exposed turnbuckle, spearing him through a table, and then a super spear with momentum to pin Jacob and retain not only his status as the tribal chief, but also the World Heavyweight Championship. I don't know how this ranks in terms of tribal combat matches, because we've only had 3 of them. Reigns and Jey Uso, Reigns and Sikoa, and now this one. I don't know how they rank. I would assume that this is probably second best, because there wasn't a lot of chicanery. I thought there was going to be chicanery in this match. Like, Usos coming out, LA Knight coming out. Like, I thought there was going to be a lot of chicanery. But there was not. In fact, post-match is when the Usos came out to bestow Reigns with his Ulafala. And as everyone is making their way up the ramp, we see that the MFTs, Sikoa, Tamatonga, and Talatonga, they're in the crowd looking at jacobfatu. So question is, tomorrow on Raw, will Jacob get in line and acknowledge Roman? Or will he get help from Solo Sikoa and the gang? We'll have to wait and see. But that was Clash in Italy. I thought it was a good show. Lots of good matches, and puts us into a very interesting spot going into Night of Champions, which will be towards the tail end of June. And in fact, that weekend in June is going to be a very busy weekend, considering the fact that Night of Champions is Sunday, and then Forbidden Door is Sunday. So, yeah, that weekend's going to be particularly busy for me, which I don't mind, because, June is my birthday month, and it's going to be a whole month of me celebrating turning 26. So, it's going to be a party all month. But until that faithful weekend, guys, be safe out there, and I will catch you guys next time.